welcome back to my channel. This is Cyan of @perceivegrace, both on here and Instagram. Today I am setting up January 2025 in my reading journal and going over my TBR. The theme for this month is Medieval Hero, and I am using digital art from Artistry and Blossoms, Three Wishes Co-Store, and I think one other shop, but I will leave everything down below in the description box. Everything's from Etsy, and as always, I am journaling in my B5 size journal from Archer and Olive, and we are, like I said earlier, going over my TBR. One thing that's changed for me this month in my reading journal, this year in my reading journal, is I am now including the nonfiction I read in this reading journal. The past couple of years, I reserved this style of reading journaling specifically for my fiction that I read, and I have tried different ways to journal my nonfiction. I've just not journaled my nonfiction, but I realized this year that if I want to journal my nonfiction, I want to track it as much as I track my fiction, and I also want to read more nonfiction. I think the best way to do it is just to include it in this journal, because this journal concept, how I've been doing it, has been working very well for me the last couple of years. So it is a system that proves to work well for me, and incorporating the nonfiction I read, it just made a lot of sense. I explain this a little bit later on in the video, but essentially I'm keeping my monthly TBRs to 12 books. Last year, it was difficult to get more than 8 sometimes. There were a couple months where I just got 6. 12 is a good number for me. I've read 12 books in a month in the past. I've read less than that in the past. It's a good goal for me, and the idea is that I'll be splitting the 12 books between 8 fiction and 4 nonfiction. So if you were here at the beginning of last year, I tried to implement a 52 weeks of Faith Reads journal, but like I said earlier, nothing I was doing for nonfiction tracking was just working for me. A separate journal was just too much. So having 4 nonfiction reads a month still works with the whole 52 weeks of Faith Reads idea, essentially there's a nonfiction book for each week of the month. So I think that will work really well for me. My nonfiction tends to be very short. I read a lot of theology. I read just a lot of Christian nonfiction, faith-based nonfiction, and the books tend to be pretty short. So that should be fine. And it's something I navigated last year anyway a little bit, despite not being able to keep up with journaling it. So you'll see how I go about that later on in the video. But sit back, relax, enjoy. Let me know what you think of my TBR. Let me know what you think of this idea for 2025. Let me know what you think of the theme, and thanks for watching. First up, in no particular order, is A Fall from Grace by Jenny Goutet. This is the first book in the Clavering Chronicles series, which is a 3-installment interconnected standalone series. You can read them as standalones, but I would read them in order. They follow the 3 Clavering siblings, and the first book follows the romance of the eldest brother and who he, his female love interest. And I gave this 4.5 stars the first time I read it. I read it 2 years ago, and I really want to reread it. One of the biggest reasons I want to reread it, other than that I really enjoyed it, is that I want to redo the book review journal spread I made for it. I liked the first one I made, but it was before I really started doing it in the style that I have now, and I think it would be really fun to recreate a book review spread in the style I have now for a book I really love. Another thing is, January is the perfect month to read this book in. If you want a Regency romance that with a wintry vibe, with a wintry aesthetic, I would highly recommend reading this. It's also, I think, the first book I read by Jenny. I've read several books by Jenny, like 8 or 9 at this point, and she just writes very traditional Regency romance, and I just really enjoy them, and this is one of my favorite from her. It has dual POV, secret pining, a sarcastic, cynical, protective hero, and a hopeful, virtuous, intelligent heroine. And yeah, it's just a lot of funny and failed matchmaking, and loss of social status is a big theme as well. But I really hope I get to it. I think I put it on my radar to reread last year and just did not get to it, but I really want to get to it this month. Again, January is just the perfect month for it, and I'm just really itching to recreate that book review spread. Next is The Winter Princess by Kira Dominguez. This is book 2 in the Royals of Sandmark series, which is an ongoing series that covers 5 royal siblings. I read the first book, The Impossible Princess, earlier in 2024. I think I might have read it in September. I gave it 4.5 stars, and really just because I feel like I'll get a 5-star read out of another book in the series, so I kind of wanted to reserve my first 5-star read for really feeling that 5-star in the series. But The Impossible Princess was very good. And The Winter Princess, obviously I want to read it in winter. It was on my December TBR, but I did not get to it. My December TBR was a little ambitious for that month, especially after getting sick twice. Reading was not going to work out for me, but I really want to get to this. Like, it's a high priority read. I was originally recommended this series by Jenny of @jenny.reads on Instagram. I get most of my recommendations from her that I don't find on my own, and she just never fails me. So The Impossible Princess was much better than I thought it was going to be, because she kind of underhyped it, but she really hyped the following books in the series. So I have very high expectations for this, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. This one is Actually Yours by Belinda Mary. I impulsively bought this as a part of a book haul last year, and I just really liked the premise. I think it sounds entertaining. I don't think it's YA, although the cover kind of makes me feel that way. I think it's just a sweet rom-com, and I'm not aware of all of the tropes, but I think Off Limits is one of them, because the male love interest is like her ex-boyfriend's older brother or something, so that could obviously just get a little interesting. But I really liked the summary. I don't think I've really heard anyone talking about it. If it turns out to be an average read, that's okay too, but I kind of put it in there as like a good palate cleanser, and I think it'll just be a really fun, easy read, and I do really like the cover. I think it's cute. Next up is Isabel and the Beast by Mary Soleil. This is one of 2 highly anticipated new releases on my January TBR. This released December 30th, and it is book 2 in the Once Upon a Rom-Com series. And I read book 1 this time last year, called Cinder Luna, and I gave it 5 stars. I really, really liked it, and so I'm really looking forward to this as well. And of course, it's a sweet rom-com retelling of Beauty and the Beast. That's pretty obvious, and the books are very much connected. You should read them in order, because you get an understanding of what this book is going to be in the first book. And I believe kind of like the main trope is that the MMC is a celebrity, so I think it's like, one of them is famous kind of idea. But I'm excited to get to this. I think one of my things for 2025 is I really don't want to buy books, even if I think I'm gonna love them, if they're already on KU. Like, let me read them on KU, let me know I'm in love with it, and then let me buy it. So I'm gonna read this on KU first, and then buy the paperback after I've read it, most likely. But the cover is stunning, and I'm looking forward to it. My next highly anticipated release on this TBR is Recipe for Rivals by Casey Stockton. This is book 3 of 3 in the Arcadia Creek romance series. They are interconnected. I think you could read them on their own and out of order, but I've been reading them in order as they've come out, and I'm most looking forward to this one based off the previous 2 books. I gave the first book 5 stars, Love on Deck. I gave the second book 4.5 stars, and I think it's called Falling in Line, and so I'm highly anticipating this. Casey Stockton is another author that I've read a lot from. I find her writing to be very, very smooth, and another thing I'll say about her books is even when I don't love the characters, I still love her books, which I feel like is so hard to accomplish. Like I've read books by her where I didn't love the characters, but I just kept reading. Like I just ate up her writing. So that speaks volumes just about how bingeable her books are. She writes both historical and contemporary, so a lot of Regency. She has some medieval, like Scotland medieval books, and she's been writing rom-coms lately and doing a great job of it. So I'm excited to get to this. Obviously, one of the main tropes is rivals to more or animosity to more. And then I believe just from reading the synopsis that is also single mom. So I think Nova, the FMC, has 2 children. So I'm just excited to get to this. We got a taste of Dusty, the MMC, in the previous book, and I loved him. Like we got a bit of him at the very end of the second book, and I was like, I'm ready for his story. So here we are. The cover is awesome, and I'm very much definitely getting to this. And same thing with Isabel and the Beast. I'm going to read it on KU first and then buy the physical copy upon reading it as like a reward kind of thing, because one of the things I want to definitely break, and I know I kind of talked about this with the last book, but I don't want to buy the paperback and then somehow not get to this book this month. I need to read it on KU, and then I'm like, okay, I read it, I loved it, let's get the book now. So that's my logic. If you think that's silly, I can totally see that, but let me know if you relate as well. This one is Seize the Day by Anna Barroso. The author messaged me on Instagram and asked if she could send me an early ebook copy in exchange for a review. It releases on January 28th, so I have my ebook copy and I will be getting to it this month. I love the cover. I think that's absolutely beautiful, and I always read the synopsis before agreeing to, read a book early, and I really like the synopsis right away, so I'm looking forward to this. It is a beach town, he falls first, second chance, exes to friends to more, so that's interesting, grumpy sunshine, and some other things. So I am really excited for this. I will definitely be reading it because I did promise her that I will read it this month and review it, but it looks fantastic, and I'm not sure if it's a debut or not. It might not be, I really don't know, but it releases January 28th. And the last book, Recipe for Rivals, I believe that released January 3rd, the day that I'm doing this voiceover. So that's out now. And then again, this releases January 28th, I believe. Okay, next is I Love a Good Challenge by Sarah North. This is book 2 in the Love in Birchboro series. I don't know if there's going to be more, but so far what is out is I Love You in French, and I read that this past November, I believe, and I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was great. It's small town, atmospheric, stuff like that, and this is the second book. Like I said, it has second chance, he falls first, small town, slow burn. The MMC is a lawyer and the FMC is a baker, and it kind of has a more to enemies to more, and I'm looking forward to getting to this. The author gifted me this copy when I reviewed I Love You in French. She asked if she could send me anything for reviewing it. She was so sweet. She was so enthusiastic about the review. She did not ask me to review the first book. I bought it myself and was like, I'm getting to this fall. I want to read it. It's a very fall cozy read, cozy romance, and she loved the review and was really excited about it, and she was like, can I send you anything? I was like, well, if you're gonna send me anything, send me the second book because I want to read it. So she kindly sent me the second book with some of her merch stickers with it, and they were really cute. They matched the cover of the book, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's longer than the first book, and I think there's just gonna be a lot of angst, and knowing what I know about these characters from the first book, I think it's just gonna be great. There's gonna be history there. It's gonna be just awesome. Her books are not like rom-coms, like they're romances where there is angst and there's just a lot going on, and they're very cozy and atmospheric as well. So I'm looking forward to this. If you haven't read I Love You in French, I would read it. It is a fall romance, but if you don't care about seasonal reading, read it whenever you want. It's really, really good. And I don't know, from the cover, this one looks like it takes place in spring. I'm just reading it now because I'm excited to get to it. Last but not least of my fiction reads is my classic choice for this month, which is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I have not read this, so it's not a reread or anything. I'm kind of low-key doing the 12 months of classics challenge, I think it's called. I've heard that challenge before, but there is one Instagrammer, Holly, who kind of does like the story templates for it. I'll put her username on the screen. I can't quite remember, but her name's Holly. And I'm kind of loosely doing it. I'm not like tracking it specifically anywhere, but I'm like, oh, let me just put a classic on my monthly TBR every month as one of my fiction reads, because there are enough that I would want to get to. And I recently purchased Agnes Grey, and I read the first couple of pages just while I was waiting for something out and about, and I loved the first couple of pages. And when I shared that I was currently reading it, so it is my technical first book of January, people messaged me and was like, I love that classic, and it's short too, so I'm looking forward to getting to it. It's now the 3rd/4th of January because it just turned midnight. And I still haven't started reading my first book because I've been doing all of this stuff with this, like these setups and like social media attention and stuff. So once I'm done with this video and I get it uploaded, I can really focus on reading and back journaling stuff from December. So yeah, this is my first classic, and I don't know if I'm going to stick with this challenge. That's why I didn't decide to make it official or anything. It just, this book was good so far. So I was like, let me add it, and the cover is really pretty, and let me know if you've read it. It's supposed to be my first read of January, so I'm definitely getting to it. Again, in no particular order, first up for my nonfiction TBR is Contentment, Prosperity, and God's Glory by Jeremiah Burroughs. This is a part of the Puritan Treasures for Today collection by Reformation Heritage Books. They are a Christian theology nonfiction publisher that has a lot of imprints and publishing branches and stuff like that. And I get most, if not all, of my theology and Christian nonfiction from Reformation Heritage Books. I am Reformed Presbyterian, so Reformed theology, Reformed Puritan theology, all of that stuff is what I enjoy reading. Church history, things like that, practical help. So I will be reading this. It was gifted to me actually by Reformation Heritage Books. I do have a 10% off code with them. I believe it's just perceivegrace, but I'll link it down below if you want to save 10%. I highly recommend their store. There's a lot there, and they ship very fast in my experience. So that's a perk as well. But they let me choose 3 from this collection. I think there's 11 or 12 in the collection, and they're like compact size, so they're small, and they're perfect for like on the go reading. And they're short, and I love anything about contentment. 2 of the most like inspiring reads I read last year, faith reads I read, were about contentment. And I think contentment is something we all struggle with today. It's just a struggle in modern society. Contentment, that is, in past centuries, I just imagine contentment for the everyday person was a little bit easier to manage. Of course, personality has a lot to do with it as well, and just your spiritual life too. But contentment is very difficult, and it's something you have to think about all the time if you want to practice it. And so I just love reading anything about contentment. And Jeremiah Burroughs is someone I have read from before as well. Usually these authors are historical figures in Reformation church history, and just church history in general. And I enjoyed his writing. I was familiar with him, so this is one of the ones I picked, and I'm excited to get to it. Next up is The Puritans on Conversion. This is like an anthology of 3, I don't know if they're sermons or if they're just commentaries, but there are 3 essays, I guess you could call them, like 3, they're not short stories, but there are 3 writings in here, and by 3 different theologians. And I enjoy reading Puritan theology just because it's always a good dose of reality, and it's always very honest and hard-hitting, and it's always cause for reflection. So this is a part of a set as well. I thought there were 3 in the set. I have all 3 that I thought I needed, but I guess there's one more. There's one about the Puritans on the Lord's Supper, but I have this one and the Puritans on prayer, and I think the Puritans on loving one another. So I will eventually read those later in the year as well. But I really love the covers. Each cover has just like a beautiful painting on it, and I want to get to it. I think this is the longest read of my nonfiction reads this month. This one is Your Future Other Half, It Matters Whom You Marry by Rebecca Van Duward. I hope I said that correctly. I've read another book by that author, and I liked her writing. It was about women in the church, women in church history, and it was really good. This one is obviously just about marriage and marriage preparation and thinking about that. I'm in a long-term relationship. I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years, so I'm not like thinking about finding someone. I like found my person, but engagement is our next chapter, and then marriage is our next chapter after that. So I'm kind of wanting to read a lot more this year and think a lot more about marriage preparation and just really think about it. I've been thinking about it, but I want to read up on some just theological perspectives and thoughts and whatnot, and you know, just a headspace to kind of start getting myself into, because you know, even when you're in a relationship but you're not quite engaged, it's an interesting limbo to be in, because you're not single but you're not tied to this person, you know, in a way. So it's interesting, and it's just something I know I'm getting closer to as we have these conversations ourselves as well. And this is a short book too. So, and I really liked the opener because the author like immediately referenced Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice. So I read the preface a little bit ago when I first got the book, and it'll just be a quick, hopefully fruitful read, and I think it'll be edifying as well. Last but certainly not least is a major name in Reformed theology, John Calvin. This is On the Christian Life. There are many variations of this floating around out there by different publishers. I think this is just compilations of his major writings, and I've read one other variation of this from a different publisher. So I imagine it'll be a little bit different. Great reminders, of course, and it's always very edifying to read Calvin. It's also just a really pretty book in person. That always helps. And that is the last of my TBR.
told your friend you're not okay? And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long.